internet, and welcome back to Two Guys and SharePoint.
Take two. The only SharePoint show in sunny South Africa, because apparently it's 32 degrees in Stellenbosch today, where everything is not made up and there are no points. One hand.
Well done. How's it, Al? Been a
Mr.
while.
Modlin,
Super excited
Mr.
to be
Modlin.
back.
Oh, it's good to be back. This is take two. They've changed the StreamYard things, and we tried recording in 1080p by pushing 1080p, and everyone robotoed. So we had to go back, click the end button, new post, everything new, and we are back, and we're hoping that there are no robotos on this month's episode of Two Guys in SharePoint.
Well, we are talking about all the news from the M365 conference. So if you're hoping to have no robots, no AI in it, I think you're going to be out of luck.
Well, AI fatigue.
Yeah, we haven't looked at any of this news yet. So live and unfiltered, we'll see how it goes. I bet there's a bunch.
I suppose we have to read the other parts, right? If you are new to the show, or anyone that hasn't, this is episode 78. We talk about all things Microsoft 365 with a very excitable love for SharePoint, because we'll be talking about the M365 conference recap. This is a recap show. I don't know if you'll call it a recap show or a YouTuber reacts to, because it's a combination of the both, right? We're doing
Absolutely.
a recap on the M365 conference that happened, I think today's the last day, happening in Orlando, Florida right now. I had to cancel my trip. I'm very sad and salty about that, but I'm excited for all the new news. Also, and then coming back to the show notes, because we kind of deviate from this, we promise to make sure that you take away at least one thing. By the end of the show, we'll show you at least one thing that we think is pretty cool, and we hope that you think is pretty cool, and you get this out of every show. So sit back, relax, and please try the fish. Who's looking for me? Who's that?
Yeah. Call. So, talking about the new news, shall we get into the new news?
Into the news. Is this a new segment or is it a deep dive segment? I just want to know which intro to play.
It's a news, deep dive into the news. Yeah, it's news. It's all news.
Okay. All right.
All news all the time.
Roll the jingle.
I must say, I'm using earbuds for this recording. First time I'm using them, and that was loud AF, bro.
Let's see if I can make this bigger.
Make it bigger.
I can. Okay. All right.
Yes. So Teams news.
Yes, before we jump into all the news from the M365 conference, this is also the beginning of the week. So typically, when we record this, the episode that you get at the beginning of the month is usually about all the news that Microsoft has released in the last month. So we've got a what's new in Microsoft Teams, we've got a what's new in Microsoft SharePoint for April, and then we go to all the updated stuff. I haven't seen the Teams update stuff, but it's a bumper SharePoint edition, because the M365 community conference is really, let's be honest, all about SharePoint. Come on, man. It's the old SharePoint
That's conference. The cool bit.
Yes.
It's the cool bit. Totally.
Yes.
But we are starting with Teams.
Because we want to get it out the way.
Let's get it out the way. First up on the docket, multi-turn conversation with Copilot in chats and channels. I must say, I thought this was already a thing, but when you're in Teams now, you can have a persistent chat with Copilot instead of just one-off messages, which is really handy, and I'm surprised it didn't launch with it. I mean, in the background, they've got to send. Yeah, like in the background, right? They've got to send all the context every time. So I get how it's more load, but yeah, if you have been using it, it's now more useful. So that is sweet.
I think so Google Home and Alexa, she mustn't hear me. They introduced that about 2 years ago, where Google was ahead. Okay, Google was ahead, and I think Siri was ahead, where you could ask, how many states are there in America, and then ask them what the fourth state is, and it would have context, right? So,
yeah.
I don't want to use the word grounding in the AI term, but the contextually based sort of, you can ask a question with a follow-up question. It is great to see that. It's weird that it wasn't there since the beginning, right?
Well, it is a lot more expensive to run when you do that, right? Because the way these generative AIs work in the background, because that's what this is, right? Is if you want context, when you make the prompt, you have to give it the context. So they've automated that in the background, but I can see how it's more load and why they didn't do it at launch, I guess.
But look, running AI is expensive. You pay for token generation, right? And I've got my own Llama 2 with Open Web UI running on a server in my house. Very excited. We might introduce that at a later show. But yeah, it costs money for these things. I don't know. NVIDIA's share price is through the roof because this is what they sell, right? Moving on, what else was there? Oh, this is a big one.
Hide the general channel. Thank God. It'll make everybody who has to do information management, right? If you're doing information architecture and you want to use Teams, this makes it so much easier if you can just get rid of that general channel and
that is good,
and
right?
Categorize that properly.
What is this group chat profile picture?
You can change the picture of your
everyone's pictures in there.
Chats. Yeah, you can pick an icon, right? Rather, because it always automatically generated a thing for you. So if everybody had profile pictures, it did that little split screeny thing, whatever. You could always change the names of them, which was handy. You can now set a picture for it. This group chats thing has always been a little weird for me, right? Like, especially in this sort of thing. So you're going to give it its own name and you're going to give it its own icon and stuff. At what point does one of these become a team?
Or a channel, right?
Or a channel, yeah. Like, at what point do you want that instead? Like, these to me are supposed to be very short-term sort of action-focused groups, but I suppose it's a tool set. You can use it however you want. So more functionality, it's great. It's cosmetic, kind of whatever.
We need a rating system to say high, low, and medium, right? For these releases. So is it a low, impact sort of rating, or is it a high, like super exciting, right? This for me seems low and confusing.
If we're doing the streamer reacts things, then we need to use the rating scale, right? S class, A class, F class, whatever.
I can add. Hold on, I can add this. Right, let's just create a banner.
So if we're using that classing scale and we go S, A, B, C, and then have like a D class for like whatever, who cares about it? This is kind of a C to me. It's kind of meh.
Hold on.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
Because that's the thing.
So like, this one,
if we knew all of these before, low intensity. Yeah, absolutely low intensity for sure. Not particularly important.
Okay. Moving on, content-based file attachment suggestions.
Super handy if it's smart enough, right? We'll have to see how good it is when we do this. But like, if you're working on a bunch of different projects and somebody's like, "Oh, where's this thing?" and you can just share it to them from the auto suggestion. That'd be really cool if it's smart enough.
Well, we don't know if it's powered by AI, right? There's no mention if it's powered by AI. But I do like it.
Yeah, it's got to have some context clues from the graph, right? So the graph, we've already got like file suggestions via graph, right? If you look up somebody's profile, it'll say, here's the documents they're working on that's most relevant to you. So it's probably the same list, question mark. We'll see how it goes.
Don't know.
In theory, super cool.
Yeah. More voice. We don't care.
More voice isolation. Yeah, I mean, having clearer calls, great.
We've spoken about this before, though.
Yeah. It's pretty good as it is, honestly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Getting better, great. Simplified Teams creation. I don't know that you want to make it easier for people to just create 1,000 teams. Like I think for a lot of organizations that might actively be a bad thing. Same with channels, right? Like if you're doing it properly and you have a real information architecture, you want people to like apply for these and have it approved and like have somebody who knows what's going on. But yeah, if everybody's doing self-service, then it's great to make it easier. I would be a little worried about turning it on. Like
we talk about information architecture modeling, and the first thing we do is we stop the creation of teams. So it doesn't matter how easy you make it; it's not going to matter.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, like that. That's the first thing on the checklist for sure.
Sign in with multiple accounts across clouds. I like that.
It's awesome. I hope it works. I hope it works like it says on the box, because that'll make people like our lives so much easier, right? For the general populace, they've got one and they don't care. But for us, anybody listening to this, probably that'll be a game changer for sure.
This is magic. This is gold for me. And especially people that I've got 3 accounts that I use, and each account is logging into 1, maybe 3, some even 5 tenants. And to get notifications through, right, I don't have to run multi-account containers in Firefox to stay alert. It's going to pop up. I love it. It works. I'm very excited about it. And
it'd be so good.
It's not going to eat memory. The other cool thing about this feature is I could be in a Teams call in a specific tenant, and then toggle between tenants without dropping the call. Yes.
Yeah, you totally could do that.
I've tested it. I've tested it.
That's really cool. You've tested it. That's a boss. That's really, really handy. That's really handy. Yeah.
Still need to test if someone calls you from another tenant, if it rings from a notification perspective. Because it's notifications saying you've been tagged in a chat, or all the weird and wonderful other things.
Yeah, and you can just click and not have to worry about it picking your call for sure. Yeah. Nice.
Like this one. This one irritates me. Calendar notifications. Right.
Yeah.
I don't need
like
it
the activity
in
feeds
and in Outlook, and it shows up in Teams first, and then it goes to Outlook. And
I've noticed that, and it is irritating. It is irritating for me. It's like I get where they're coming from, right? Teams is the place of work, right? That's where you get all your stuff done. So you want the notifications in there. So I get it. It is kind of irritating, but it points to a future where we don't have to use Outlook at all anymore, which would be great, right?
Yeah. Okay, moving on. We've got the bumper one. Admin controls for Copilot. Don't care.
More admin controls are great. It's a very small user base, right? If you're using it, great. They've got some
Q&A.
New capabilities.
These ones we're just going to scroll over, right?
Yeah, and then we're into the hardware, which whatever.
What is this one? Teams for rooms and more Android 4K.
Yeah, it's all Teams, rooms, hardware stuff. If you're using a bunch of those, awesome. You can import schedules into Shift's app now. Right.
Okay, that's it.
So
that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
That is the size of it.
That's it for Teams. I'm glad that Teams is not getting the crazy bumper edition things. Like
we don't have time.
I can switch back to our original team. All right. Do we need a drum roll for this, Madeline?
I don't think we have time, Al. We've got so much stuff here. There's so many links.
Is there funny sitcom thing? That's our actual audio. So we don't need a drum roll. All right. Okay, moving on.
Get into the nitty gritty.
All right. So SharePoint roadmap pit stop. This is not the cool stuff. The cool stuff is on the next slide, but we have to go through this. Have you seen the brand center available in SharePoint? It's actually, where is it? I think it's in the admin center. You now have a brand center. I think so. Hold on. We can check.
Brand center and custom font support. So custom font support is nice, whatever. If you can have a central brand center that you can then apply to the whole tenant, that would be super cool.
Where did I see it? I saw it somewhere. It's not here. No. I saw it somewhere.
Don't need to. Yeah. So it's an app, right? The first thing to come to the brand center is the ability to add and use custom fonts, which is very cool. As new things come through, that'll be very useful.
The brand people, the UX people are losing their minds. And we're going to show you what these brand centers actually look like. So we can actually scroll past this. Connections in Teams, don't care about. Feedback.
Switching the intranet from Teams on iOS and Android is handy. Feedback buttons, meh, who cares?
They just want our information.
Teamwork updates. Microsoft
the new
Planner,
Microsoft Planner.
Hey, the new planner. Have you worked with the new planner at all? Right? Yeah.
Didn't we speak about it last month?
Yeah, I think so. It's fine. Like, I don't know if you're really if you're doing a whole lot of project management, right? I still don't know that you're using Planner until all the integration paths are worked out.
Look, it looks nice, right?
It does.
And what you
it looks
do from
very pretty.
Yeah, you can
you
see
get the
all your
Kanban boards. I
now.
like it. Oh. But like, I don't know about you, but like when I work, I use DevOps, right? Which is the new MS project, right? Essentially. And as far as I know, these two systems don't work together. So
yeah, we've got a
use case.
We use a product called ProofHub, where we track all our tasks. So if you really wanted to do DevOps, we use ProofHub for that specific purpose. It doesn't integrate with MS Project, which we create our projects into. So it would be great to take projects, put it into a DevOps platform, and then have your sprint planning,
and then be able to. Yeah, it would be lovely to have all that stuff integrate into this Planner app, because, like you say, it is a very modern app. It looks great. It'd be very useful. But until that real integration comes in, I think you're using it for low level use cases. really.
I like the calendar or the schedule view inside of Planner, which is neat to see when things are finished. So they've done well with, going from a grid, which is your typical, not Kanban, your issue register or your issues, your backlog stuff. They've got that now from a grid perspective, then goes into sort of Kanban board. There's a schedule option, which is calendars, and then it's got charts. So they've done a lot, and I might want to revisit a Planner for that specific reason. And then also it lives now inside of Teams, right?
Yes, and
so
that's the big selling point for sure.
Yeah. We are going to talk about SharePoint e-signature. There's a bumper news update for this.
Super exciting, right? If you can do this just within the 365 platform.
They're calling it end-to-end creation to signature. There was a session at the M365 conference that focused on end-to-end. I saw a slide, end-to-end. Create the template, fill in the template, have it signed, end-to-end contract management sort of thing, right? From the time you build the template to populating the template, to sending the template out for someone to sign, to having the sign part, and we've got some sign news here. SharePoint pages we'll talk about. That's part of the brand stuff. Clipchamp. Have you used Clipchamp?
Yeah. I have not. I remember when Microsoft bought this, and a lot of people were like, "Why did Microsoft buy this?" But I think it's cool. I think it's a useful capability to have. I don't know where I'm going to use it. I've got some open source alternatives I use when I'm doing video.
I use CapCut. That's what I use. And if I want color grading, I'll pull it into something like DaVinci Resolve, and there's new AI stuff with DaVinci 19, which I'm quite excited about. But, taking out the pauses in a video is pretty cool for a product that's not marketed as an enterprise grade video editing or even medium range video editing like CapCut is, right? It's pretty cool what they're doing.
It's another thing that makes this whole thing the whole platform more appealing to SMEs, right?
Yeah.
You don't quite have the scale of a giant enterprise where you want to outfit all your creators with Adobe Cloud, but you still need to have that requirement. You can just do it here, which is cool.
And it's not even SMEs, right? It's organizations that have a marketing department, but they don't have an agency that's going to chop up a video, right? They now have the capabilities internally when they're producing video for, something like Viva Amplify, where they can publish content to multiple areas, Teams, SharePoint, that sort of thing, even in a mail.
Well, they have a town hall or all hands or whatever, and they want to put out that video afterwards. Somebody can spend a little bit of time and make it a little easier to deal with. It's good. Nothing wrong with it.
Guest sharing for Microsoft.
Okay, so now we're getting to the point where Loop is actually useful, right? Without the guest sharing, you come up against a hard wall if you want to use this technology, where you just have no external collaboration, which is a deal breaker in so many scenarios. So now you can do that, and that's really cool. It does. Is it only B2B? Or is it? Because here it says B2B.
I haven't tested the external sharing, which I'm going to do later today, just to see what that looks like. Remember, the Loop consumer version allowed this. So if you've got an MSA, a Hotmail or a Live or an Outlook.com account, and you invite your friend who's got a similar account, boom, you can invite that person to Loop. Now they're talking about sort of M365 accounts, right? So I'm assuming that's why they're calling it out as B2B. So you in your tenant, me in my tenant, I invite you to share a Loop workspace, and you can join with your tenant account.
I wonder if you have to set up the federation and that stuff. It just works. Like you say, we'll go through it. But that is big news. That's super cool. Loop components in OneNote, making them available in more places. Only for the better, I suppose. I
So
have not
why would you
used what you
use
said.
OneNote when you've got Loop?
Because I use OneNote all the time, and like my OneNote is my OneNote, and that's where I keep my information, right? So it's for that, right? It's the backwards compatibility thing. You have a bunch of people in your organization who are used to using OneNote, but you want to make use of these Loop components so that they're collaborative and step to dates or whatever, so they can do that.
Apple Vision Pro, Apple's biggest failure,
So
probably.
useless.
Yeah.
Like I hate to say I told you
Video
so, but I told you so.
Big push for Microsoft Build coming, and there's the event. I think it's the Build event. Yes, it is the Build event. You can see all of that. PNP community stuff, new makeover on their site. Is this the PNP or the Power Platform?
Yay to the PNP peeps. Like, they make so many things possible. I wish they
and the
spend more
Microsoft
time.
Power Platform community, right?
Yeah.
Which is neat. All right. Before we go into May 2024, we're actually going to move from what was released in April to all the new announcements that was made. Is this the one? The roadmap update, which I'm very excited. And I haven't seen this, so we are going to react to this. So this is all the announcements that were made in the last 2-3 days. All right, I'm going to scroll.
Let's do it.
So what is this? Simple authoring. So the best platform for compelling and engaging intranet sites, right? Let's see what this actually says. In SharePoint.
This is an example of a SharePoint site. It looks sick. I must say, it looks real good. It looks.
Notice videos still in there. Let's see what this does.
Okay, so they're like all the content management stuff looks much easier to deal with, right? Just the fact that you can drag it around there and do all of this, and you can add in these bits and pieces. Like, this is all very cool for those flat informational pages, of which there are a bunch, like, to be fair, right?
That's pretty cool, man.
That is pretty
That's
cool.
Pretty cool.
I wonder how much impact it's going to have on the workhorse sites, right?
Well, for
maybe
those
these days you're just not supposed to have them anymore. You're just supposed to do that work in teams.
Well, instead of creating a generic Teams site with no coolness, you can now build really, really cool pages in no time with very little graphic design experience.
Yeah.
So for the creatives inside of organizations, it's amazing, right? What is this one?
Sure.
The new SharePoint Start experience, which we haven't really seen. I haven't seen this. Copilot and SharePoint. Let's see what this does. Multiple people editing a SharePoint page. You can now see that.
Real-time co-authoring is super handy.
That is pretty cool, man.
Inline commenting from editors. The AI will give you some ideas around how to do things.
Well, we've been talking about real-time co-authoring in SharePoint pages. We've now seen a better demo, right? Let's see what else. This is the new SharePoint page, right? I haven't seen this. This is more Copilot stuff.
Yeah, so you give it the prompts and then it just generates it for you.
And they also talk about grounding, which we haven't gotten into yet. But that upload of a document is really around grounding. And did it just build this page?
Yeah. I wonder if it's actually that quick. But even then, so all of this information must have taken out of that doc.
Well, they did the grounding, right? They uploaded the document.
That's really cool. Yeah. So they give it the. I mean, that's really sick. That's really, really cool. That is really cool. Pick the language even.
Wow.
None of our languages here in South Africa, but like that's sick, man.
That's super
really
neat,
sick.
man.
That is super, super sick. Again, it's for the flat informational pages, not like the not sort of the workhorse pages, but all of these tools you can apply to the other one.
That's super neat, man.
That's very
Author
cool.
inline commenting, design ideas, formatting updates. Ooh, okay. So the SharePoint Brand Center, which I need to check because I saw it the other day in somewhere in one of the admin centers, right? It is available to you. And if you look at what it allows you to do with section backgrounds, a bunch of shapes that you can now add from a templating perspective. So people can literally just select a template and create a page off a template. Everything that you put in the brand center,
great.
What does that actually look like?
It's got.
So we've seen this, right?
Yeah. Like that's a good modern web page, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a legit modern web page, which is fantastic.
And you can also see how Stream still lives.
Yeah, it's just in SharePoint now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is where it should have always been.
Right. Yeah, so we've got the brand center, section backgrounds, which is a great way to add dynamic stuff, right? Image shapes, video pages.
This one. AI.
Integrating Click Champion it, yeah.
Voice generator. Voice-over generator.
Yeah.
We should try it. We should take this video and put it in there and get AI to do.
I've seen it in CapCut. So brutal, dude. It's going to be so brutal. Especially with like a South African accent. AIs do not like South African accents.
We do have a slide that talks about the roadmap, so I'm not going to focus too much on the roadmap.
I like also in there's the interactivity. Sorry, so you can do a call to action. Like at specific points in the videos you're doing and stuff like that.
Oh, yes, yes. So you want people to interact and you want to comment or, click here.
Because that's why you're putting up this content, right? Like this is a business context. We have to remember this is not just flashy social media stuff. Like there's a point to why somebody's watching these, and at a certain point you want them to say, yes, I'll do this. Here's what I think about it, whatever.
Yeah. Fill in the form.
To break the flow. You don't have to break the flow of the video or the page or their experience. You can have the call to action right there and just do it in situ, which is great.
Okay, some things around Viva Amplify. News in Outlook, helps. And we've seen this.
Yeah.
When they demoed Viva Amplify, it was still missing the Teams integration, but being able to use Amplify to create campaigns that you want to publish to where your users are. Some users are in SharePoint, some users are in Teams, some users are in Outlook. We've seen this with Viva Engage, where because it's built on the Fluid framework, you could literally interact with a Viva Engage post directly in an email, right? And they've taken Amplify for campaign management inside of your organization. It's a great platform. I'm very excited about it. And you can now do things with that, right? And they're talking about this Copilot deployment kit, which is a pre-built campaign for Viva Amplify, that you can use to publish information about Copilot to your organization, which is quite neat. Let's have a look at what the video is.
Even if you're not interested in doing that, really go have a look at that campaign that's built. Because any of these solutions Microsoft that put out, you can get a lot of just best practices and cool tips and tricks from pulling apart one of these general solutions they put out. They're really handy.
Well, here's publishing messages to Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, Viva Connections, and Viva Engage.
want to play around with this at some point. I have not yet.
The Teams one is there now.
Standard approvals, infrastructure. I'm going to have to just make friends with it sometime.
I did not hear you. There was music.
I'm just saying, like, so their whole approvals thing there. It's obviously using the out of the box approvals infrastructure that's in 365, right? And I was just saying I'm going to have to make friends with it, because at the moment I'm just I'm not a fan, man. It doesn't do everything I wanted to do.
Yeah, approvals in the
like
lazy approval concept, right? In Teams,
Yeah.
we like it. We like lazy
I love it.
approvals, right?
It's
We've
cool.
used it.
It's cool. I don't like the approvals infrastructure because it's another black box. And my approvals specifically, I want more tracking and control over. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's
some extensibility stuff around a graph API for SharePoint pages. If you really want to start tracking things, from a usability perspective, quite neat. And then also the new UI toolkit. If you head over to https:// aka.ms SP Web UI Toolkit, which is quite neat for those sorts of developers that spend time in the UI. There's an entire toolkit here, which is pretty cool. The other thing that I'm excited about that most people aren't, right, is SharePoint Embedded, right? So it's now available. I did a session on SharePoint Premium at the UG last month, and SharePoint Embedded is now, it shows up inside of the admin center where you switch it on when you start looking at SharePoint Advanced Management stuff, not to be confused with SharePoint Premium, because Premium is not a SKU inside of the product. There's multiple areas that you have to switch SharePoint Premium features on. SharePoint Advanced Management is the only one that you actually see inside of your SharePoint Admin Center. And then there's Archive, there's Backup, and that shows up. Archive shows up in the Sites view. Embedded is just a little tab that you enable. And they are going to provide you with an interface right now to spin up these containers that's required for SharePoint Embedded. It's a scripting thing, but they are building the administrative side where you can literally sit inside of the SharePoint Admin Center, say new container.
Yeah.
And you're going to have this new container for
that's super important for us, right? If you're building a solution, the most pain in the ass thing to handle is always documentation, because it takes up so much space. And how do you deal with it, right? It's like if you can use SharePoint as the back end for that without having to have everything else that goes around SharePoint, and you already get the versioning and all of that control around it, that's magic, man. That saves so much time and effort and brain power. Like, that's a really solid system they've been working on a long time. So if you can just leverage that, it's phenomenal.
Look, in the traditional ECM space, I believe that there's a place for SharePoint Embedded, especially for customers that are moving off, the Documentums of the world, where they've already built a custom front end for a broker portal, and they've got a custom front end, and the object is just sitting inside a Documentum. And there was a ton of integration built there. You can now move all of that legacy content that you used a platform like Documentum for, you can now move into
the SharePoint Embedded.
Yeah. And I have I'll talk about SharePoint Embedded for the next hour, so I'm not even going to continue that conversation. Moving on. We've got some roadmap stuff. I've got a slide for this. And then moving on from the traditional stuff, advanced management, which we just spoke about. SharePoint Advanced Management, what's coming, that content, the agreement solution, right, that we just spoke about with the e-signature stuff, right? I mean, that's all coming, and I'm very excited about.
It's super cool. Like, it sounds so awesome. It also sounds like it's piggybacking off the standard approvals infrastructure, which makes me a little nervous. Not gonna lie. But if it works, it works, right? And I'll just have to make friends with Microsoft approvals.
So it's end to end, right? They use a bit of syntax in here, a bit of templating, a bit of understanding, and then also it ends up, and I think it's that one, the new partnership. I mean, if you look at the screen, right, that's all agreements that you need approval from, right? And it shows you how it does that. And they've glued the e-signature thing on top of this. Not only from an extraction perspective, and this is actually living. They say that it's an app that lives inside of Teams.
That's
super powerful.
Fascinating. Can't wait to get my hands on it and really play with it properly.
Content management stuff and the DAG, the data access controls on the governance side, that's all coming. I actually did a demo of the DAG stuff. So when you actually, I can show you quickly. Hold on.
You like DAGs?
SharePoint. If you actually go look at, where is it? Here we go. So there's quite a few reports coming through. And then when you look at SharePoint Advanced Management, there's also stuff that you can do around data access governance reports, and then also restrictions, site level access restriction, not to be confused with, they introduced this half and half, right? Site level access restriction, and then also you could use it to block Copilot.
Yeah.
So it's quite neat. While you fix your information
cool.
Where were we?
Yeah, because that is very important.
So more content over sharing controls. We just looked at it now from a DAG perspective. You can now interact more efficiently and effectively from a risk perspective with what's actually happening inside of that. So EU, everyone except external users report. Also need to see some cool stuff
like
around
who's actually got access to all this stuff.
Yeah. So we've had guest access review policies are built into Azure AD, Entra ID. You now have a similar thing when it comes to site access review policies, which is neat. It's
super important if you're doing this properly, right?
I geek out about the admin stuff of SharePoint. I don't think anyone else cares, right?
It's important. Like the stuff has to happen and get done properly.
It's the same for, there's just a ton of things that they are now bringing into SharePoint Advanced Management, not just from a scripting perspective, when you're building out these sort of policies. And obviously there's AI, right? And it's quite neat.
That's super fascinating to me, right? Because that's one of the big hurdles in real information management, right? Information architecture is you've got new stuff coming in. How do you actually classify it? And you can't have a big enough team to go through every piece of content in the organization. But if you can actually have AI do it, that's epic.
So we're seeing there was some, and we always talk about when Microsoft launched Copilot, it was the end user dream, right? The productivity enrichment tool. They're now starting to release AI for the administrator as well. And there was an article recently, I can't remember what it was. We commented about it, I think it was last week, where they're bringing, Copilot or at least some sort of AI for creating a Terraform script, right? Where you could literally point it at a resource group and say, hey, go create a Terraform script so that I can provision stuff. And we're seeing some of that come through now as well around, content policy recommendations, where AI is going to tell you certain things.
I think that's the more useful side of this technology, honestly.
Yeah. So it's nice to have these things now baked into the administration side, because when they moved to the cloud, it was a bit light, right? And third-party products, AvePoint was always there that you could kind of plug in, but it wasn't great because Graph wasn't mature enough. And now you're starting to see them build these things into SharePoint.
Yeah.
You've got to buy the license, obviously.
Yes, you
But
need the license. It can help secure everything, right? Very, very much like I've just had a quick scan through the stuff. It looks very much like here's a site that's configured properly, right? With a bunch of sensitive information in it. Go check these other sites to see how much similarity it has. And then it'll give you recommendations based on that, which is super cool. Super, super cool.
even down to change history, all the cool auditing stuff that we've wanted that wasn't there is now available,
Yeah.
right?
That's so good. So good. Right. So it's not only us that are excited about this, it's also all the auditors, right? That like this stuff.
Well, being able to restrict site creation, like we used to restrict Teams creation, you can now also do that for SharePoint, which is quite neat.
Yes, to a select group of people, which is great.
Yeah.
Without having to give them SharePoint God mode, right, on the tenant.
Yeah.
You can say, no, they just normal people, but they're the ones who can create, and that's super cool.
We've had this tenant rename functionality for data limitation, right? I think it was 20,000 sites. Anything above that, you couldn't change the tenant rename, right? There was a limitation. It now goes up to 100,000 sites.
Wow.
Which is neat. Ooh,
cross-tenant site migrations, handy.
This is a big one, dude. This is a big one.
Very handy.
So if you were to ask me from an organizational perspective, what is the most traditional projects we've been doing over the last 2-3 years? It's been tenant-to-tenant migrations. Literally. We've probably done about 8 or 9 of them over the last 3 years. Mergers and acquisitions, bitter divorces where companies need to get out of a tenant. And we'd always sell them a product, right? In this case, it would either be ShareGate or it would be AP Elements Fly. And ShareGate's now shipping with mailbox migrations, which is also now we're comparing apples for apples, right? I can buy ShareGate, all you can eat, and I'll be able to migrate mailboxes and then also content. AP Elements Fly always had that. If you bought the mailbox migration, you got the SharePoint migration free part, right? It just shipped with the product. $15, $20, I think it's $21 a mailbox.
Always loved that point product.
Yeah. And now you can do site cross-tenant content data migration. So site to site, across tenants.
Yeah.
That's
so good, right? It makes you, if nothing else, it makes me, like as a business, it would make me feel a lot happier about anything I'm doing, right? I'm going to put this in here. We're going to have this partnership, whatever. If it doesn't work out, it's going to be pretty easy for me to just
get out
that stuff. I'm not going to lose all that work I put into this, into this intranet or all this IP. I can pull it out. It's great.
All right. What else do we have, Modlin? What else? What is this? This is the e-signature part, right? So there's SharePoint e-signature, which is out of the box now. You get it as part of. Is it part of this? Where was it?
So
it was somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but you can now integrate SharePoint e-signature with Adobe and DocuSign. So you can use Adobe Sign and DocuSign as part of your e-signature integration, because SharePoint e-signature, where is it, man?
Now just directly integrates into that. So I've done a couple of projects with this recently. The connectors between Power Platform and DocuSign specifically, I haven't done much with that, are pretty strong, right? Requires a bunch of configuration on each side, but you can do it. They're now just baking that in so it's seamless, right? You don't have to go make a custom solution to do that for you. Inside Power Platform, you can just do it seamlessly, that's cool, right? That's ease of use.
I know where it is really now. Nice. Here we go.
And like from the preview, in SharePoint, you can just hit the button and say, Adobe sign this, which is like, that's really cool, man.
Currently, SharePoint e-signature, also known as Syntex e-signature, is available in the US only.
Typically,
if I click on it,
it'll roll
in
out.
Europe. Hey?
It's like things usually start in the US only, and then they roll out to the rest of the geos.
So you have to switch on Syntex, add a pay-as-you-go billing model to your Azure subscription. Then you get archive and backup and e-signature, which is part of SharePoint Advanced Management, which is part of, well, not part of SharePoint Advanced Management, but is part of SharePoint Premium, which is still under the weird tab that says Microsoft Syntex. So, yeah, it's kind of massively frustrating with where they put things, because you're not buying SharePoint Premium, you're buying Advanced Management, and then you switch these other things in with Syntex, right? There we see it over there, the integration. Is it going to give me? It won't give me a really good screen, but that tab that I clicked on.
If you scroll down a little more, that's where the exciting thing is. So that's a preview of a document in SharePoint, right? And you can just hit the drop down and say sign this, which is very cool, great for workflow. Just be aware that once you turn all of this on, right, now all of your employees can use up a credit with DocuSign.
Oh, wow.
Charge, like per envelope, right? So they can just fire off those envelopes. So a little bit of management to be done there, but super cool.
All right.
Super, super cool if you do a lot of this.
Moving on to OneDrive, Copilot, more Copilot things.
Always Copilot.
Right there, straight off in a document, summarizing that thing that you don't want to read. That's neat.
That's super neat. I hope we don't train our entire populace to not be able to read documents. Yeah. I mean, who am I kidding? Nobody reads my documents anyway. Like now, at least they'll read the summary. So it's a win.
So it's generated by AI. It's summarized by AI. So what do we do, right?
like now somebody's going to plug that summary into AI and say what's the best decision, and then the decision's also made by the AI. So, well, like we're fine because we need to set up all these AIs and keep an eye on them. So I don't know what the business users are going to do.
I'm going to create a document, ask Copilot to write me a document, right? Based off these grounding areas. Like, I've downloaded this PDF, write me a document on this PDF, create a proposal. Then I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to tell AI to create a PowerPoint slide of the presentation, of the document.
Of the document, yeah.
I'm going to present that to a customer. Then I'm going to tell an engineer they need to deliver.
No. You get the AI voice to text to speak over the presentation, right? So you don't even have to present it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a fascinating world we live in.
Yeah.
Yep. I
so
mean,
what is it
some of this is going to stick, right?
Yeah. And then Copilot will compare files, right? Which I think is a neat feature.
That's super cool. But what is it?
So it will do that for you as well. Written by AI, summarized by AI. Tell me what to do.
Processed by AI. Yeah.
More summary.
Sure.
Share the file with an auto-generated summary. Does that mean that the people are not going to read the document? They're just going to read the summary, right?
I mean, they're not reading the document now, Al, so might as well give them the summary off the bat.
Faster file viewer, which is cool.
That's great, because it has been a little sluggish. And I'm glad they're still making improvements on that and not just resting on their laurels. That's great.
Better search, always good to have.
Always. Especially in like OneDrive, which is a very unstructured environment. So being able to read, like relevantly search it is great. Search no longer works on the internet. It better work for our business files, right?
We've seen this feature from a sharing perspective on how they've updated the interface, which is neat. Branded files from external sharing, which is neat as well.
Yeah.
OneDrive
Very,
experience in document libraries. That's cool.
That is cool. Just a much more
Cool.
modern sort of interface for sure.
Yeah. OneDrive is almost fully grown up, right?
Yeah. It's cool. And then we can just snatch that in SharePoint. Love it.
This one I'm particularly interested in, right? Now, it's the same conversation.
Creating them from templates, yes.
Yeah.
I think we chatted about this last time as well, right? Because this is one of the things, I mean, we've been doing this in SharePoint since there's been SharePoint, right? One of the main use cases is everything we make at this company needs to have the same look and feel. We need to use the same templates. How do we help people find them? And it is so hard to do. Even if you put in a lot of effort, it's impossible. But if you can get your organization stuff in here and they can just click and it's always the latest one, that's the dream, right? That's the holy grail.
Yeah. These templates are not to be confused with the original .x's. Not to be confused with that.
No.
In the old days,
this is an entirely different mechanism.
Yeah. I've tested this. I have tested. Do you need some water, Mother? Do you need some water? Yeah. I've tested this, right? So I'm glad that Microsoft is bringing templating back, right? Because where do people live? They live in Word, right? And they want a template. They'll find a Word template that's in Word, not in SharePoint. And you had companies out there that used to provide you with that facility, which they would surface products that would surface SharePoint library templates inside of Bright House. They bought 315 for that. There was, I remember, I think his name was Tal. They bought a product that would surface SharePoint content inside of Word. Now what they're saying is, if you live in OneDrive, all your templates are in OneDrive, and start working that way, which is really, really neat. But it's
the holy grail. It's such a common use case, right?
Yeah.
That's really necessary.
Do we care about photos?
A media view is great. If you are using OneDrive to store this sort of content, this is essential, basically, right? You can't do it with just a list.
Yeah. Offline mode for OneDrive.
Again, super useful, right? If you have that use case, it's non-negotiable. So,
well, OneDrive for web, right? Not OneDrive in File Explorer. And I suppose that's the difference here, right? Because we've always had offline mode in File Explorer, and we had the other mode where we could decide, do we want this locally available, proper offline, or do we want to do a files on demand thing, right? Based on storage. If I've got a 20 gigs sitting in a library, I'm not going to hit the sync button and then make that available to me with files on demand offline, right? But now you can use the OneDrive client, and I snap my OneDrive as an app, because I literally do that because I like the interface. And now you'll be able to take that app offline, or the OneDrive for web offline, right? Which is quite neat. And that's pretty cool, using OneDrive offline.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Personally, I like using Explorer, but there we go.
And now they're making OneDrive available in more apps, like OneDrive in Outlook, not just Teams, right? They're bringing it to you in Outlook as well, which is quite neat. I'm assuming it's the new Outlook, which I'm not using. Everyone's been super excited. This is a medium intensity for me, where you're going to have a colored folders in Windows File Explorer. Colder
like
folders.
if you're a big file organization person, it's just handy. Why not?
I've never used colors, so this is new, right? Are you dying?
Yeah, me too. A little bit, but I'm here for the news, so I will battle through.
Admin reports, which is quite neat. So you can export.
Very handy to get
OneDrive thing,
like real metrics on how people are using this stuff.
Yeah. And that's it for OneDrive. We have moved past the hour, so I'm going to scroll through this quickly. Copilot, they talk about grounded chat, right? And we spoke about the grounding thing, where you could literally, add files, use local files to ground Copilot prompts. So you actually want to upload a file and then make sure that it's grounded to looking just at that, right? Which is pretty cool.
I really like that. Again, it's making this more useful, right? Rather than this general autocorrect, we're now getting some useful stuff out of it. I'm still waiting for when we can say, everybody in my business can interact with this Copilot. Copilot, here is a set of documentation. This is your knowledge base, right? This is what you're grounded on. And that's the policies and procedures or whatever. And you can set that up beforehand. Very cool.
I want Copilot for groups, not just Copilot for me. I want Copilot for groups. Like a meeting recap Copilot, that's great. For a bunch of people that have been in the meeting, I want to contextualize Copilot. I've seen products, AI products. So if you got a Hugging Face for LLMs and this front end, I've seen tools that will allow you to do that. So you've got a product catalog. Summarize the product catalog for me and give me the top 10 things based on something, right? And you can collaborate with a group. I want a group Copilot that will do this. More efficiently there again. Create and consume Word documents, right? Create the Word document with Copilot.
Yeah, and that's what we've said, right? That's all the stuff that we've looked at now. So all of this is, I don't know that it's there yet, right? But I think they're moving in the right direction to make these Copilot tools like really useful to the majority of users, which is cool.
Makes you write things faster, right? And makes your brain slower. That's how I see it.
And that's the danger we're going to run into. But that's not a technology problem. That's a people problem.
Look, making Excel easier for me to do things in is valuable to me, right? Create a pivot table of this stuff. Awesome, right? So, yeah.
Alistair, Excel is not a database. Please stop keeping your data in Excel. Oh my God, there are better solutions.
Oh, there we go.
I will die on this hill, man. Yes, it's nice that Copilot will help people with that data, but put it in a real database, use the tools in Power BI. It's better.
So there's this thing called Copilot Academy now available, in Viva Learning. For those that actually use Viva Learning, there's now information about Copilot. So you can hone your skills around becoming a better prompt engineer with the stuff that's available inside of
and that is a major new skill set. Anybody listening to this podcast, right? I'm talking to you listening to this, and I know that you are going to need these skills in the future. Don't wait on it. Do it now.
Yeah.
You are going to have to get good at AI prompting. Regardless of what work you're doing now, you are going to need it. Look into it now.
I think Singapore has actually instituted a new law where people over the age of 40 have to learn about AI. I think it's a new law.
I'm not
Jen
surprised.
was telling me
they
literally it's a new law, right?
It seems very much like this sort of thing they would do, right? They're very involved in their citizens' personal development, which is, take it or leave it, right? But if you have made the decision to do that, that's one of the things you'd say, this is going to be important, right?
Yeah.
I'm on record as saying that most of the stuff out now are Tinker Toys, and they're not actually useful. But we can see in all of this stuff, they're getting closer and closer and closer, and it's not happening incrementally, right?
No.
Big leaps and bounds. A lot of the stuff is getting really, really handy and really, really useful, and we are going to have to know how to prompt these properly.
Yeah.
So it is a big skill set.
Something we've spoken about restricting SharePoint search. It's now available. It's part of advanced management. I spoke about it, and now you can actually, for those who don't want to fix the information architecture, you can remove certain sites from being indexed by the semantic index that is the brain inside a Copilot.
Yeah, you should be doing this anyway, right? If you've got proper information architecture, it'll make your life easier because you know exactly where it shouldn't be trawling and just presenting answers to people. If you don't have a proper information architecture in place, it's going to be more of a ball ache for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're rolling out Copilot, this is immensely important because you can so easily open a security hole without meaning to.
Yeah.
Right, by giving these LLMs just access to all your data.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the last thing we want to talk about before we go into the roadmap slides is Copilot in Planner.
Is this going to do my estimates for me?
I don't know what it does in Planner, but I mean, the new Planner, I like what it looks like. Can it summarize, move things around? Is it an administrative function? What is it, right?
It looks awesome. Like it really does. I wish, because like the DevOps boards and stuff, it's very old school. It is.
But it's generating things and managing things, right? Move things around. Tracking. What else was there? That's just on the new Planner.
Yeah. I would love to see. I mean, the last Planner I swear to God, I worked for like a month trying to get projects to integrate into DevOps and Planner. So we could just have one, you can have one plan that you can access from all the different places. Because it would be so cool. It would be so good. Not quite there yet, but we're getting closer. And man, it does look cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's the news part. We've got to go into the roadmap and have a look at what is available. We've covered quite a bit in the news. When we look at what's available today, Stream Web part, sharing pages, news in Outlook, and so forth, so on. Coming soon, the Brand Center in public preview. So for those who are actually a CAP program or have access to the beta tenants, depending on what ring you are on, you should start seeing these things pop up, like the editor Copilot in SharePoint, the page authoring, and then also things that are coming soon and also top of mind. Authoring Copilot in SharePoint, which I think is cool. Themes in the Brand Center, I'm really excited about. Don't care about the animation effects, but for the UI people, they should, get very excited about these things.
It's just for the admin for like your whole farm, what we used to call a farm. It's just easier, right?
Yeah.
So good.
OneDrive and Microsoft Lists. Are you a list guy?
I love lists, man. I mean, it could be a SharePoint list, it could be a Microsoft list. It's essentially the same thing. The forms in Microsoft lists, I'm a little leery of, just because we now have like another forms engine. It's actually another forms engine in O365, which it'll condense back down, right? Like every tech does this, it expands, and then whichever one wins condenses down, and that's cool. The lightweight approvals also, like, I'm gonna have to make friends with it. I've come to that conclusion. So yeah, it's good. It's only positive, really, despite my personal feelings.
Yeah. Well, the OneDrive app everywhere now. It's available now, and offline mode, app in Teams. We've seen that. App in Outlook, which is pretty cool. I haven't really played around with it because I'm still on the old Outlook client, not the new Outlook client. I might switch over for that specific reason, but if it's still balked, I'm not going to use it. Right?
Well, let me know. You can be the guinea pig, and you let me know it's okay, and I'll use it again.
So that agreement solution that they've been talking about, it's in public preview now. So the app is available in Teams. I'm excited about that. The autofill columns when it comes to processing. So, automatically extracting metadata and automatically filling columns inside of a library.
Oh, that'd be cool, man. Oh, God, I hope that works.
Yeah.
Like
so you literally go and say autofill columns like you do in Excel, same thing.
That's another one of those holy grail things, right? Can you imagine that 10 years ago? Like, I've spent so much of my career fucking doing data capture on stuff like this. Like, if you can legitimately get the AI to do that at a reasonable, it's never going to be 100%. But if you can get it to do it at a reasonable level of trust,
and all the policy
that's
stuff
a game
that's coming
changer.
with. This is an additional license. It's part of the advanced SharePoint advanced management stuff. So you have to buy the product. It's not out of the box. It's not part of your ME5. This is an add-on. Platform extensibility, and this is for all the dev people. So stuff like, the latest Node.js support, the Pages API and Graph so that you can extract, interactions with that. Site creation in Graph now as well, which is pretty neat. Where if you are going to build a custom front end for these things, right, you can actually do that. And then also, I like the fact that, what's coming is the approvals in lists and libraries integration, where you can actually go fetch that, take it outside and do stuff if you want to use that approvals mechanism in Power Automate.
Yeah. No comment.
The Fluent UI, the new stuff that's coming, components for cards, the adaptive cards inside of Viva Connections, not to be confused with the SharePoint home site, which is the other side of Viva Connections, right?
Yeah.
But I like the fact that we can do more. We can bring more into Viva Connections, not to be confused with SharePoint, the artist formerly known as Viva Connections, from a card layout perspective to personalize that experience, which is quite cool.
Yeah, I also like that it's because from what I've seen, it's the same adaptive card mechanisms, right? From like Teams and whatever. And the promise of that, right, is you make it once and you can send it wherever you want. Not a lot of places have been updated to like actually be able to use those cards, but as like we're seeing now it coming through into more and more places. One of them is the Viva interactions and Outlook and whatever. And that's cool, man. That's handy.
Okay. I think that's a wrap, Mr. Modlin.
I think so. Long episode this week, but we had a lot to get through. A lot of it is super exciting. Very cool things coming in. And not just in the AI space. It's nice to see the community behind the tried and true technologies, and those are getting like some really cool stuff soon. So
are we still saying that SharePoint is sexy again? SharePoint is sexy, period. It's no longer SharePoint is sexy again, right?
SharePoint was never not sexy. Just some people fell off the bandwagon. I don't know why, personally.
Classic SharePoint, dude. No. Anyhow. Are you going to close out before I hit the exit?
Let's do that. Thank you all so much for joining us. We had a blast doing that. If you are enjoying the show and you want us to keep doing it, hit the subscribe button just down there and the like button if you're doing that, or subscribe to us on whatever podcast app of choice you would like. We're on all of those. Bully a friend until they decide to listen to us. If you want to find the rest of the stuff we do online, it's pretty easy. We have a website, 2 Guys and SharePoint.co.za. That's with the number 2. You can find all our episodes there. We're also on Twitter. Yes, I'm still calling it Twitter, at 2 Guys SharePoint with the number 2. I'm on Twitter at OddModlin, and L is
at Alistair Pugin.
So we'll see you next time. Thank you all for joining us. See you in 2 weeks. Don't forget.
Great stuff. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.